But first, what if that bottle you carry to your gym for your workout every day slowly becoming a part of your body? No, not metaphorically, literally. Microplastics is what we're going to talk about. These are tiny fragments invisible to the naked eye, have now been found in human blood, lungs, liver, even your brain. And in most cases, the source is right in our hands, which is plastic bottles, containers, and packaging. What we store in, what we eat from, what we drink out of. For years, we were told this was an environmental issue, but it's not just about oceans and landfills anymore, isn't it? This is about us, this is about our bodies, our brain health, and the science is only just catching up. So let's go across to our guest joining us this morning. First up, I do want to go across to the voice who's going to be talking about the other aspect to this story, which is what comes with plastics, what does it do to the environment, and what must be done in order to ensure that this doesn't become a public health issue. So with us is Arun Krishnamurthy, founder of the Environmentalist Foundation of India. Good morning, Arun. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for taking out the time. Arun, first up, to the broader aspect that we're trying to highlight here. We will talk in just a bit to another guest who's going to be joining in shortly about what this means for our body, what kind of plastic is found as per science and research in our body over a few years of this kind of consumption, or how it enters our body given we're using plastic water bottles still, there are food storage packages, all of that. But first up, I want to understand the broader story, the broader aspect of public health, and whether the plastic we find in our immediate surroundings can bring in that kind of negative impact to public health overall. What are your thoughts there?
Whether it's an immediate public threat, like it's going to be catastrophic, there's not much research to back that up. But should we be worried? 100% yes. Simple reason being, any simple natural ingredient, when it's an overdose, that by itself has an impact on the body. The body reacts to it. Too much of anything is not good. Just imagine, plastic is not a natural digestible source. Plastic is not a natural energy source for the human body. Plastic is not a nutrition source for the human body. So over a period of time, if little by little, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, if we are going to consume plastic, and unknowingly consume plastic and put it into our body system, it is definitely going to have an impact. And we may wake up to a reality which is much harsher in the future. Take into consideration our immune system. When the body is set to fight conditions which it's only tuned to, natural systems, we are forcefully introducing a foreign subject to it, which is not a nutrition source, as I mentioned, which is not an energy source. And how is the body going to adapt to it? From our reproduction, from every aspect of human life, carcinogenic elements targeting individual body parts from liver, lung to much more, or even a mother who's directly feeding a child, passing on microplastics through milk. All of this is something which is now being researched upon, which we are finding traces into, and it should be a cause of concern. From child intellectual development to human senior citizens and their adaptability to medication, everything is being questioned.
Okay, Arun, now I want to talk about a cause that you've been deeply associated with the last so many years, and part of that mission is also cleaning water bodies in and around, right? So you've been doing it in ways more than one. Would you want to correlate the two? So for instance, plastic finding its way into our water bodies, does it also
100%.
enter our bodies eventually? Through that
100% yes.
mechanism?
100% yes. See, take into consideration a freshwater lake system, which is receiving its water not just through filtered channels. It is receiving water, rainfall, which is happening all over. And then this rainwater gushing through the streets, gushing through the farm, fields. It's actually taking with it a lot of plastic than we can imagine, right? And all this goes and sets as residue. This plastic breaks into finer particles, and these finer particles go into microparticles, which are then being fed by the fish and more. We feed on that fish, or even the water, for example, is something which we draw from these lakes and ponds for drinking purposes. And I don't think we have filtration systems which can remove microplastics and then supply us with only clean water as nature intended. And very simple, Water by itself has a lot of minerals in it. These minerals are necessary for the human body. Way too much filtration and treatment of this water not just removes the microplastic, it also removes those minerals, making that water source redundant of all its energy and nutrition facts. So microplastic is a problem for which a solution that we assume may not even be practical, realistic. That is why we have to be extremely cautious before there is a catastrophic health situation in a large country such as India. We have to wake up and consider this. From the Yamunotri glacier to Rameshwaram to every corner of this country, our villages today, whether it's outside of Mohali in Chunnikala or here down south in Tamil Nadu, somewhere near Shivagasi, even rural pockets are dominated only with plastic trash lining on both sides of the road as you enter villages. That is to the extent which plastic has infiltrated our lives, from crop to water and more.
Yeah, I was getting to that. In fact, doesn't that story replay itself then from how it enters our body, how it enters water bodies, and then finally into our systems, and how it finds its way to the soil where our crops are grown typically. So when our crops also carry microplastics, what happens to our gut, what happens to our system, and how dangerous is it really for public safety, public health and nutrition overall?
I'm no health expert, but as you were rightly mentioning, we work on the field and we visibly see this, right? When we visibly see this, it's not rocket science. It's very simple fear from within. If I took you to one of our sites where you're witnessing pesticides, fertilizers being as it is used on the crop. In addition to that, the crop has a plastic lining pond from which water is being drawn. Temperatures soared to 34, 35, 38 degrees Celsius. Isn't it logical human thinking that the plastic, the heat and the water are interacting? And this water is then fed to the crop. Add to that, as I mentioned, the pesticides, fertilizers. Then you are packing it. The packaging is interacting with this material, right? Rice, salt, sugar, to every aspect of or cut meat, even cut vegetables. All of this is interacting with that plastic. And this is stored somewhere. Goes through temperature variations from air conditioned storage to trucks to much more. And then we are keeping it in our refrigerator. Then we are using oils to cook this. Further, we are eating it. Where is the nutritional value left in this food anymore? And also the bigger fear, all this interaction, what kind of research do we have to justify that this plastic is not leaving residues in it? This is where maybe as individuals, we should wake up and not wait for the governments and the scientific community to come tell us 20 years down the line, or for the last 30, 40 years, you've been doing this. That's exactly why you have cancer in this part of the body. This is not to paint an apocalyptic picture. It's very simply to infuse this thought in fellow human beings that be mindful of what we're consuming or what we're using. We are in an era of
small
plastic.
Little choices could take you a long way. Could really
100% yes.
prevent plastic from entering your body. So why not make those wise decisions? Arun, one last question before we let you go this morning. On the positive story here, have you seen innovation the last decade or so, the last few years, since you're so closely associated with this entire cause, innovation, startups that are actually looking at dealing with microplastics and the pollution that comes with it?
You rightly started the show by stating that although there is research that is underway about microplastic, it's not reached to the point where we have foolproof information. And same goes for the solution-based. When the problem by itself is not fully understood, the solution, there are definitely a lot of goodwill thoughts and a lot of ideas that are coming out. But have we reached a point where we already have a solution to a problem that we don't understand fully? No. And it is a bright morning. Everybody's going to have a wonderful day. Just for that sake, I don't want to paint a rosy picture hypocritically. Microplastic is a problem for which we don't even understand the scale and scope of the problem. Solution for it cannot be an eye wash. It has to be social change from deep within, from every individual.
Thank you so much, Arun, for that wonderful thought you're leaving us with this morning. Thank you for joining us with that beautiful takeaway. I do want to now go across to our second expert. Joining us on the broadcast is Kumaar Bagrodia, a behavioral health researcher, founder of NeuroLeap. He's been closely tracking how plastic exposure could be interfering with our brain function, with our organs in general, even if we don't yet fully understand the damage. Good morning, Kumaar. Hope you're doing well. Kumaar, the conversation began because you have been so upfront about what microplastics, this fragment of plastic that you can't even see through a naked eye, does to your body, how this conversation needs to be more frequently had on platforms like the Breakfast Club. So let's start with that. Tell us, why are we talking about this story today, and what kind of harm do microplastics do to our body?
Yeah, Krishnamurthy, thank you first of all for highlighting this issue on your show. When we see plastic on our streets, in our rivers, on our beaches, we see a tangible problem. Unfortunately, as you rightly said, we are unaware of how much plastic we are ingesting. And there's a lot of research now globally, and allow me to share a few points. When they did autopsies on human brains, they actually found about 0.5% of an average human cadaver, 0.5% of the brain was made up of plastic now. In a full-blown dementia case, 2.5% of the human brain volume was filled with plastic. 2.5%. Let that sink into everyone. Here we are bothered about, are we having organic fruits and vegetables? How much sugar are we consuming? Are we having enough protein versus carbs? What about some of the basic simple things about ensuring that we don't take in unnecessary amount of plastic orally, right? We cannot immediately start, getting our water bodies plastic free. That requires government regulation, that requires huge investments. But ingesting plastic from water bottles, from plastic food containers, those are easily avoidable. The second and most concerning part, which we found, that in your arteries, when you have plaque, arterial plaque, almost 21 milligrams per gram of plaque is now made up of plastic. So it's finding its way into your heart, into your brain. It's becoming part of your brain tissue. On an average, globally, there's research now that there is perhaps about 8 milligrams of plastic in your blood circulation at any given point in time. That is the amount of plastic we are ingesting through water bottles and through plastic containers.
So
a
the
larger
choice...
issue which I...
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. A larger issue what I have found is that people continue to use plastic water bottles when they are exercising. Yeah. So in the last 2 decades, the amount of runners, marathoners, gym goers who will be gladly using a reusable plastic water bottle, because the assumption is that it's only the single-use plastic bottle which is leaching out chemicals and microplastics. That is true, but even the reusable ones are leaching out chemicals and plastics. The problem that happens is when you're exercising, the gut becomes more permeable during exercise and just after exercise, which means these microplastics and nanoplastic particles can actually move through the gut to your blood, and there's higher absorption across every organ of your body. So you're actually harming yourself just with some of these ridiculously small things which can be avoided.
So it all comes down to whether or not you want to wait a couple of years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of your life before some problem comes your way and finally you figure out that, oh, it was plastics all throughout that were at the heart of this problem, and this could have fully been avoided. That choice one can make today, and that's why we're having this conversation. Kumaar, the other interesting thing you spoke of is how people don't realize these small little choices, wrong choices being made on an everyday basis, and simply out of convenience, for instance. So thinking that you're going to have to pick the heavier bottle, a steel bottle, copper bottle comes with an additional weight. So let's go for a plastic bottle instead. The dangers that come with it have gone unnoticed, is why we need to talk and bring this discussion to the mainstream. What do you think can be done to spread more awareness as a nation? How do we go about this? Because for the longest time, we've spoken of environmental concerns that come with plastic.
Sure.
Not so much about what it does to your body. Why?
Great question, Krishnamurthy. See, the problem is when we realize that plastic is not good for nature, environment, well, we are nature as well. We are biological bodies. We don't have the ability to process plastic. Yes, a large amount of plastic that we consume orally finds its way out through fecal matter, but there is always enough which is still being stored in our organs. In addition to microplastics, let's not forget the chemicals within most of these plastic containers and bottles. So BPA, BPS, BPF exposures, they are now proven to be leaching into the water, leaching into the food. And it's not a particle, it is actually just chemicals which are causing endocrinal issues, neurodevelopmental issues. Two populations which I believe are at very high risk. One is pregnant and lactating mothers. We have found plastics in cord blood, in placenta tissue, showing that there is direct fetal exposure. Secondly, it's the student population, young children, because they are using plastic water bottles, they are going into their playgrounds, the sun is beating down on the water bottle, the temperature is going up, the plastic is disintegrating, the chemicals are leaching into that water throughout the day. You've got plastic tiffin boxes. Now, imagine if a full-grown adult cannot process plastics easily, and if you have the same amount of water, the same food being given to a child, that means the amount of plastic per kilo of body weight is higher for the child. The amount of chemicals being leached per kilo of body weight is higher for the child. So you're really harming their developing organs, their liver, their kidneys. And let's not forget, the fact that we are finding plastics in the brain means it is crossing the blood-brain barrier. And for a brain that is not fully mature.
Kumar, can you put a number on that and tell us, let's say, for everyone who's once a week or twice a week ordering food online, which also comes a lot of times in plastic containers, and people end up doing this grave mistake, committing this huge mistake of warming that by just saying that, oh, it's just 30 seconds, what harm could it do? So, for instance, one time ordering outside, one time carrying your water in a plastic bottle while you're working out, how much plastic is our body absorbing if we just go with a bare minimum standard? And this is just so people know what's happening to their body at the end of the week.
Yeah. So there are varied research papers here, but on an average, I would say, if you've stored, let's say, a 1 liter bottle, and that is plastic, per liter, you can expect to consume 250,000 nanoplastic pieces. So if you've consumed 2 liters of water, 500,000 nanoplastics in your gut today itself, right? And you multiply that. It can become worse if you are heating food or adding hot water or using the same bottle over and over again. So which means the wear and tear and the damage, which is not visible to the naked eye, is actually leaching more chemicals and plastics. The weekly ingestion, the global estimate is that you are ingesting about 5 grams per week of plastic. That is the weight of a credit card. So you're ingesting on an average a credit card every week, right? You very rightly put it that if we just start doing 2 or 3 things. 1, avoid plastic tiffin boxes, whether in school, whether in office. Second, don't heat, food which you've received via a delivery, from a restaurant, anywhere, don't heat it in that same plastic container. Quickly remove it from it and use your metal containers. Even though there are microwave safe plastics, it doesn't mean they are not leaching the chemicals or the microplastics into the food. The third part, and again for school children, the long-term impact is way more grave because the exposure is so early in their life. So the impact on metabolism, on cardiovascular risk, and more importantly, cognitive function. I love what you said at the beginning of the interview, that we can either wait for 20 or 30 years, and when the research is finally out, we can say, oh my God, we've, really subjected ourselves to this horrible mess.
Yeah.
Or we can open our eyes right now and say, this is not something biological. It's not natural. It doesn't need to be in my body. And we don't need to wait for absolutely 100% conclusive research to find out that this is harmful.
Especially when research is pointing to the kind of plastic that has been found out in several organs, in different body parts of yours. So why wait? That should be thought-provoking in itself. Thank you so much, Kumaar. That's all the time we have this morning. Thank you for joining us and really bringing to the fore this very important story, very important conversation, something that parents must keep in mind without thinking they're putting additional burden on their children by replacing their plastic water bottles with a steel or a copper bottle.